let's get to practicing. Can you sketch on canvas? The answer is yes. But just understand that as soon as paint goes over it, you're not going to be able to see what you sketch. So if you want to just kind of plot things out where they're going to be, that's fine. But often you'll do a background layer of color first anyways, and then you can always sketch on top of it real lightly. What we're going to start out with is just our basic light logic formula. We're going to do sphere. So we're actually going to start out with a little bit of black, a little bit of white. And if you do a lot of black first, it's going to take a lot of white to come out of that. One suggestion, you can start with white. I know it seems a little counterproductive to be working white on a white canvas, but as you lay some of this white down here, we're going to kind of practice with the blending. We want to blend in the black to make all the different values. Make sure your brush is damp but not sopping wet. My core shadow is going to be the darkest one here. So you notice I'm using my biggest brush. Do you see how now it's like kind of tough to kind of work through that? So at this point, I probably want to switch to another brush. You can see how that was this is getting a little tough because it's relative from the size of the brush to this. So now as long as the white and the gray are both wet, you see how as I start blending, I'm picking up a little bit of the white there too. I'm not going to worry about the fact that it's picked up a little bit of gray in my core shadow because I can go back over with more. But what you got to realize is if I keep going here, there's a good amount of black on my brush now. So I either need to pick up a little bit more white, or what I do a lot of times, you know, I can kind of get rid of some of that paint and I can see like that's how dark it is. Is that the right value for this? Maybe, maybe not. So this might be a time that I can make a gray. See how dark that got just from a touch of white and a touch of black. So already that little bit of black is going to go a long way. So if I want to pre-mix over here on my palette, I can do this. And then I can kind of come in here and start blending. So I can blend it on the canvas. I can pre-mix it on the palette. You're going to develop your own style, but somewhere in the middle is usually where people land. Because if you need to see how gray this is and you want to mix that ahead of time and layer that in, that's great. Go for it. Get like the next shade kind of figured out ahead of time. So see how I'm starting to get that 3D effect. Here, it got really flat because now this is all one color. I need a little bit of reflected light. Can I go over it just like this? Yeah. If it's wet, remember, the more that I blend it, the more they're going to come together. You got to work quickly with acrylic. I'm not going to worry about the cast shadow, but right now I need to continue blending this. Maybe I need a little bit more of that darker value. Maybe I need to come in here because this part's a little bit flat as well. So I need to develop a few more range values. So I'm going to kind of flush this out and then we'll be back. All right, let's talk about our edges. You can see my edge is real kind of choppy from the canvas texture. Part of that is a lot of times I would have painted a background and I'd be painted on a layer of acrylic. But one of the things that you do have to keep in mind is that, you know, my brush needs to have a little bit of water on it for the paint to be fluid. See this? I don't want too much, but if I have a little bit of water on my brush, when I'm making my lines, see how I can get a real nice fluid line. If my brush is too dry, I'm going to get a little bit more of a texture. And then if I'm trying to fix that edge, see how it kind of starts dragging a little bit? So then I gotta get just the right amount because I need to be able to get like a nice fluid line. Difference between having that little bit of fluidity on there. So that's one way you can kind of clean up your edges. You don't want to wait too long to clean up your edges because if I went back and cleaned up this edge now, I need to match up the paint and it's starting to dry. What you're going to do for your first project is you're going to try a sphere. So try one, try a second one. But I could easily have done this cast shadow at the same time before it 100% dry. Before it is 100% dry. As I'm doing the shadow, now I can come back and match the shadow up. This isn't 100% dry, so it's still going to blend. But you see how what's going on right here as I'm trying to blend because this is mostly dry. See that? I am getting that drag against it. I can come back and add on top. We talked about how you can add layers. But as soon as I start doing this, then I'm getting into more of a dry brush effect. And when I start doing more of a dry brush effect, This is going to sit separately from the bottom layer. I can't really integrate these two and make a soft blend. So you can kind of see coming back to it afterwards. If it's something that I want to integrate and do together, it's going to be a little hard. But these are just things to notice and to practice as you're going along. You got to kind of get the feel for acrylic. So you're just going to use white and black. Really focus on values and blending and not get distracted by color. Beware of white, especially with that dry brush. Now you can really see it. See how the white is just kind of sitting on top versus over here where I did it together. It's a little more integrated in. So your project, you're going to do a couple of spheres. Do at least two. Have as many as you want on the paper, but see about this big. I got paint that was about the size of the opening. That's how much I still have, and I've pretty much completed one. If I just leave this paint like this, it will dry into a puck and it will be unusable. You can't come back to paint later on if it's been sitting out. So you do have to plan. Start with less paint, because like I said, if you're only going to do one and you only have time to work on one, start with less than that. Okay. All right, your first one may look like this. It might not. It might be better. It might not. And that's okay. Aim to try and get the different values and aim to just learn how to control the acrylic paint, when to blend. Start maybe with a little bit of light, add a little bit of the dark, and then you can always layer on it once it's dry. You can. Just beware of that dry brush effect. Go ahead and go try it.